and then we're going to just get right on into the show.
Look, we might be a silly bunch, but at least we don't have goblins, though.
I should have mentioned that the intro has to go, but I like that that's now a part of the intro, and I'm absolutely here for it. Welcome into Twig, your weekly geekly family-friendly news show that tackles everything from the Game Awards recap to Among Us, coming to Vampire Survivors with some games in between. If you're listening on the podcast version of the show, be sure to give us a good review, click that like button over on YouTube, or come and listen live on Twitch, YouTube, or TikTok every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are going to get right on into this show with our regular watch, play, read. And we have a special guest with us today. One of our level 2 members is here. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then tell us, what have you been watching? What have you been playing? What have you been reading?
Hey y'all, I'm Trombone Dalek, level 2 and Guardian. I do many things around the checkpoint, as the other one claimed. Glad to be here. I have been watching, I finally watched part 3 of the Doctor Who special, and I am literally brimming with excitement and cannot wait to watch all 3 of them again. Because me. And I have been playing a bunch of Sea of Stars lately. In the tavern. I have been reading Forgotten Neverland. Yes.
Promise Neverland.
Promise Neverland. That's it. I've been reading a bunch of Promise Neverland and still in the middle of some Blake Crouch. So a bunch here and there because that's what I do.
Yeah, I normally for the watch play read, I end up having to just choose like 1 or 2 things, because if I go through everything that I'm doing, my brain is so scattered that it would be here for a long time talking about all the books I'm reading and the shows I'm watching. It's too much.
I mean, that was only the top ones.
Right, exactly. It's the ones that I've done the most recently normally. For my watch play read, I have been watching so many anime, just continuing to book it through some of the latest seasons and trying to catch up with Dead Mount Death Play is one of the ones that I'm really into right now. Freyrin obviously is top of my charts. Yeah, those are probably the 2 biggest ones. I'm watching some other ones here and there, but those are the 2 that I keep coming back to. I've finished a bunch of the ones that I started a while back and wrapped those up. I officially have rolled credits, not just on the end game, but on the end game of Sea of Stars as of like 30 minutes ago. So pretty much right before stream, I wound up finishing, officially got the big Easter egg at the end of the game, and man, did I love it! I was absolutely loving every minute of it. Easy 5-star. I think that probably before the Easter egg, I was like, man, this is like a 4.5 star. But once they gave me that and let me dive again into the story and gave me exactly what I wanted from Sabotage, I was like, yes, big thumbs up, loved it. Highly encourage anybody to play Sea of Stars, especially if you love the JRPG genre and you're looking for that nostalgia bump. And then I have been reading One Piece like crazy. I'm almost caught up officially. I'm at like chapter 1060 at this point, which is just a bonkers number. But I'm there and I'm so excited to officially catch up to One Piece and start reading along with the release schedule instead of just years behind. So with that, as I said, do let us know in the chat what you are watching, what you are playing, what you are reading. Humar Wit, thank you for the lurk there. And I would love to hear what is in your lives right now. Chris says, watching a couple podcasts while I crochet and wrapped up The Rookie. Feds, oh, that's the like spinoff. Also, a bunch of murder mystery and holiday rom-coms with the fam. Love to hear it. All right, with that, we're going to get into our first of our trending headlines. So take it away, Trombone.
So we watched the Game Awards together here on Twitch the other night, which was a fantastic time. And we have a bunch of results to share with you. So for the Game of the Year was Baldur's Gate 3. For Best Game Direction, Alan Wake 2. Wake 2. Best Score Music, Final Fantasy 16. Best Audio Design, Hi-Fi Rush. Best Performance, Neil Newman, Baldur's Gate 3. Oh, yep, and Mayfly, we summoned her with Neil.
Yep, that's all it takes.
Games written back. Chia, Best Ongoing Game, Cyberpunk 2077. Best Indie Game, Sea of Stars. Best Debut Indie Game, Cocoon. Best Mobile Game, Honkai Star Rail. Best Community Support, Baldur's Gate 3. Best VR AR Game, Resident Evil Village. Innovation and Accessibility, Forza Motorsport. Best Action Game, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. Best Action Adventure Game, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Best RPG, Baldur's Gate 3. Best Fighting Game, Street Fighter 6. Best Family Game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Best Sports Racing Game, Forza Motorsport. Best Sim Strategy Game, Pikmin 4. Best Multiplayer Game, Baldur's Gate 3. Content Creator of the Year, Iron Mouse. Best Esports Athlete, Lee Faker. Best Esports Coach, Christine Potter. Best Esports Event, 2023 League of Legends World Championship. Best Esports, Valorant. Best Esports Team, JD Gaming. Most Anticipated Game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Best Adaptation, Last of Us. Player's Voice, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes, that's quite a list. Quite a list of quite a lot of things. Yeah, I think
Quite a lot of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
And Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, it was a big sweep for BG3 and Alan Wake 2. I was very proud of Alan Wake 2 for holding its own this year and getting some nods, which I really did not expect. I will say, looking back on this list and looking back especially on the ones that aren't like the most abundantly obvious ones, I was really happy with the variety of the rest of the games. Like, I'm glad that kind of everybody else won one. Like, Final Fantasy 16 did get a nod. Hi-Fi Rush did get a nod. It was a good indie game, a good Games for Impact. The ongoing game, Cyberpunk, finally got its moment to shine at least a little bit. And then you've got RE Village happening in VR, AR. Like, Armored Core 6 even got one. And Legend of Zelda got one. And Mario Wonder got one. And my favorite, Pikmin 4, got one. So it was good. I thought that all of the awards made sense. The actual awards show, however, has been under quite a lot of fire. People are not happy with it. I did see Jeff Keighley commented on it and was like, yeah, I wasn't happy with it either, and we're going to be working on that for next year. Like, they wrapped it up way too quick, and I agree with the assessment. So I don't know. We'll see. It's definitely a show that I think a lot of people watch for the awards. A lot of people watch for the commercials, and there are just this massive audience that both sides want exactly what they want. And if they don't get it, then they're going to be mad and upset and take to Twitter and rage about it. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Jeff.
But the real win is Flute Guy.
Flute Guy's always a win. As long as they keep bringing him back. And man, that musical performance, incredible. Just an incredible show. I thought that it was really fun. I do think there were some spots that were the worst. I like Anthony Mackie, but hoo boy, his presentation was as cringeworthy as I've ever seen, and it took like 10 minutes. I did think Kojima's bit was a bit extended, but I always enjoy hearing from Kojima. There were just things like that just didn't make sense. Like, I think the entire chat, whenever we were watching it live last week, was like, why is Timothée Chalamet here? Like, what is he actually doing here? This doesn't really make sense. Like, what's the deal? So it continues to be this weird thing of this like layover from the Spike days where it's trying to bring on big celebrities and make more of a notoriety name for itself. But one of the things that I've enjoyed over the past couple of days, especially if you're somebody that does feel that way, like you got shafted on hearing the wonderful things from people about their games and like thanking the people that worked on the teams. A lot of the teams have taken to Twitter and posted their speech. So if you would like to do that, that's what you should do. It was a pretty neat thing to go back and to see people offering up their thanks and offering up what they would have said. I've definitely read the one from Goodbye Volcano High devs and some other games like that. So I'd recommend doing that if you're super curious. But yeah, any thoughts on these? Did any of them very much excite you, Trombone?
So I'm basically going to the Game Awards and I'm like, I haven't played most of these games because I don't play new games most of the time. And so there wasn't any that like particularly excited me more. I had played Cocoon earlier and I had really enjoyed it, so I was glad to see that they got a nod. And if I remember, that's one that you have not played. Is that correct, Nate?
I have not played it, and I really want to, especially now that it won over a lot of games that I really love. So it's got some shoes to fill at this point. I'm eagerly waiting to see what it does. I think it was like one of the Inside devs left the company that made Inside and then made this. I think that's somewhat of the situation. So I love Inside. I'm down for more of that. I can't imagine that beating some of the other games though under indie category. So very curious to see where that one ends up landing. But do let us know in the chat what your thoughts might be on the Game Awards results, because we're actually going to move on to more Game Awards, and we're going to talk about the announcements that happened. And oh boy, were there a lot of them. So we're going to buckle in and try and talk about the most exciting ones there. Monster Hunter Wilds was announced by Capcom, a new Monster Hunter game. The new Hideo Kojima, as I mentioned, he had a big long segment, talked about OD. That was terrifying. God of War Ragnarok Valhalla was announced and literally released today. So quite the turnaround for God of War Ragnarok DLC. Blade from the Marvel Universe being created by Arcane. Jet Set Radio, they're making a new Jet Set Radio from Sega. The finals got announced and dropped. I guess it wasn't announced, but it was announced that it was going to be dropped out of beta. Crazy Taxi is getting a new game. Streets of Rage is getting a new game. Golden Axe is getting a new game. Shinobi is getting a new game. Sega just went crazy. And then let's see. No Man's Sky developer announced their next game, Light No Fire, which is very similar to No Man's Sky in the expansiveness, but instead of being able to explore the universe, you're just exploring one planet. Let's see, we got a look at Rise of the Ronin. We got another look at Skull and Bones. My bread and butter, I love Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 1, 2, and 3 from the PS2 days. I was a big fan of those games, and they announced a kind of spiritual sequel to those, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which I can't wait for. There was a new game from the Ori developer named No Rest for the Wicked. Let's see, what else is there? Fortnite got another new game. They've literally launched 3 new games in the past week. They have launched their festival, I think is what it's called, which is basically Guitar Hero. They've launched Fortnite Rocket Racing, which is racing. And then they have announced Lego Fortnite, which is Minecraft. And actually, if you're planning on hanging out with us after the show over on Discord, that's probably what I'm going to queue up because I really want to know more about it. The Untitled Goose Game developers announced a new game called Big Walk. It looks ridiculous, and I'm here for it. We got another new Jurassic Park game. I have enough of those, but Jurassic Park Survival. The next Mana game, Visions of Mana, was announced. We got another look at Hellblade Senua's Saga, the sequel to Hellblade. Joseph Fares' Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons is being remade. Oh man, there's so many. Black Myth, Wukong, we got another look there. Paleo, we got to look at that on the Nintendo Switch. We got to look at a new Rise of the Golden Idol. For those of you that know my Golden Idol love, we got another look at the Outlast Trials. We got a look at Zenless Zone Zero, the latest from the Honkai universe and the Hoyoverse. Oh boy, I mean, we just keep going. We got the first Berserker, Supernatural. We got Daniel Mullins, for those of you that enjoyed Inscription. He has another game that he released before that called Pony Island, and it's getting a sequel called Pony Island 2 Panda Circus. Harmonium the Musical, which was a game, I believe, made by a fully deaf staff and developers, or was it just a range of accessibility options? I can't remember which one it was, but I know there was at least an involvement from deaf developers in that. World of Goo is getting a sequel, The World of Goo 2. Got another look at Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Got a look at Thrasher, the latest game from the Thumper universe. Looks very similar. Yeah, and then we got to look at Stormgate and Asgard's Wrath 2, the latest MetaQuest game. That was really just brushing the surface. There were so many more than that. There were so many things that were teased. That's kind of what I mean about the Game Awards. It really is. If you're there for the awards, you're probably not going to enjoy the time. If you're there for a whole heck of a lot of announcements, that is the best thing to do. Be prepared to enjoy it in a community. That's my favorite thing to do, is to stream it here on Twitch with the Checkpoint Church peeps and just talk about the new and exciting things. So that's what I do it for, but it is quite a wild ride and quite a lot of things to announce. And I bet we're probably already at 15 minutes into the show just talking about the Game Awards. So do you have anything to say about any of those announcements, or are you ready to move on to the next thing since we're taking up so much time of TGAs?
Because that was one that I was super excited about, and I just confirmed that it's a collaboration between writers, designers, artists, and animators in the deaf community, and it is a fully accessible game with sign language throughout it from the start through the entire thing, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. If it doesn't win Games for Impact, I mean, it'd have to be a really bad game. Like, there's literally no shot in my mind that it doesn't take home accessibility and Games for Impact unless there's just some really good games that come into those categories in the next year or two or whenever it comes out. So very exciting to see people doing work in that area and making sure to be intentional about those efforts. So I love to see it and want more of it. All right, with that, let's get into our next news story around Twitch.
All right. So Twitch is set to shut down its operations in South Korea on February 27th, 2024. This was announced by CEO Daniel Clancy. The decision stems from the prohibitively high cost of operating in the country, despite attempts to reduce expenses, including experimenting with a peer-to-peer model and capping streaming quality at 720p. This closure is part of Twitch's broader strategy to ensure financial stability and efficiency, which also included a global reduction of over 400 jobs earlier in March. This move marks a significant shift in the digital streaming landscape in South Korea, highlighting the challenges international companies face in balancing operational costs with regional market dynamics.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It's been picked up in the wrong way. So that's the reason why I wanted to highlight it. Is I think if people have been seeing this as an opportunity to kind of like point fingers at Twitch and to say like they're the bad guy and how dare they stop services and think of all the streamers that are out of jobs and all the people that are out of their entertainment. What's happening here is a whole lot more political than I was aware of until I started doing a little bit of research. And this is entirely an element of lobbying being done by the ISPs. So the internet service providers are wanting to make money on everything that they do, and they're charging pretty outrageous rates for streaming in particular. The same is actually happening with YouTube and with Netflix in South Korea. So it's a weird scenario that, as a American person who is very unfamiliar with South Korean culture, cannot adequately weigh in on the political spectrum here. But I do want to say, I saw a lot of people coming after Twitch for this, and Twitch has their mistakes, but I don't think this is one of them. It is an unfortunate casualty of a company that is struggling to stay afloat anyway. And so they just kind of had to cut ties with arguably one of their big markets. I think esports is pretty humongous in South Korea. So the fact that they are having to back out of one of the biggest esports areas around is probably devastating, but is a decision that they had to make economically and fiscally. And I think this isn't Twitch's fault. I don't know whose fault it is because, again, I'm not in the culture. I can't adequately weigh in. But I do think that it keeps being thrown in the face of Dan Clancy and the Twitch team, and I just don't think that is fair or an accurate reading of this article. Anything else that you found?
It's easy to make Twitch the scapegoat even when there's multiple factors at play and there's not just one person to point to, which, as you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important to keep in mind with just about any story. Speaking of, we're going to follow up on a story that we covered a couple weeks ago around Gerard Khalil, the Completionist. Gerard Khalil, better known as the Completionist on YouTube, has responded to the allegations of charity fraud involving the Open Hand Foundation, which he actively participated in. He was accused of withholding over $600,000 in donations meant for dementia research. Khalil has now released a nearly 20-minute video rebutting these claims of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. The allegations were initially raised by prominent YouTubers like Carl Jobst and some ordinary gamers, creating significant controversy. In his defense, Khalil provided supporting documents, including a blog post, to clarify his and his foundation's actions amidst ongoing debate and intensified accusations from parts of the online community. This has been a stressful story, and it's been one that I've kept my fingers on. I'm a big Completionist fan, and so admittedly, I bring in some bias there. And I want to acknowledge that before I say anything else. But this was definitely a tough scenario. And he has since, this summary didn't mention it, but he has since stepped down from his board position. So it sounds like either this went in over his head or he is also disappointed in the resulting withholding of those funds. He did make sure that the donation was made and provided way more receipts than he needed to for a lot of the things, to the point that it was kind of sad, and then laid down the hammer pretty hard at the end, saying that he was not going to take these fraud accusations and the slander being sent against him lightly. A weird turnaround all around. Trombone, anything you'd like to add? Or are we good to go on to the next little bit? All right, next up.
The documentary Hideo Kojima, Connecting Worlds, is set to premiere on Disney Plus in spring 2024. Directed by Glenn Milner, this documentary offers a deep dive into the creative process of Hideo Kojima, the renowned video game designer known for the Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding franchises. The film had its world premiere earlier at the Tribeca Film Festival, showcasing their eventual talent in exploring the artistic power and potential of video games. This Disney Plus exclusive release promises to provide a unique perspective into the mind of one of the most iconic figures in the video game industry. What I think is interesting about that is that it's a Disney Plus exclusive release, and so I'm wondering what other Disney Plus exclusive releases are going to come in the future.
Yeah, is there like a weird partnership happening between whatever Kojima's doing? Is it Kojima Productions in general, or is it because he's working with Jordan Peele and now he's rubbing elbows with movie stars, which I think was always Kojima's dream. I've read his book and I've listened to his podcasts, and he always talks about his love of media, especially Tarantino and filmmakers and all of that stuff. So I think there is some level of he wants to be on the Disney Pluses and on the film crews directing major films. Maybe not necessarily. Maybe he still wants to keep the game element, but it's intriguing. I have not played Death Stranding, so that's one that has perpetually been on my backlog, and I guess now I'll have to bump it higher up the list, especially if there's going to be a documentary behind it, because I want to know more. I wasn't really into Metal Gear either, so I really have no relationship other than the fact that I just really respect Kojima's creative process. I think he's a very interesting human being, a fascinating person to hear from and to talk to and hear them talk in podcasts. I feel the same way about Sakurai. Now, granted, I did play Smash, so I have more of a relationship with Sakurai than Kojima, but in the same way, I just like to hear him talk. I just want to hear about the thought processes and the ways that they build games and the thoughts that they put into games. So I'm fascinated for this. I'm going to watch every minute. I don't know if did it say it was going to be a series or a movie? It just says premiere. We'll see. I hope that it's a series because I want a long form experience here. I want that Psychodyssey experience of the multi-part documentary walking behind the processes of some of his games at a bare minimum, Death Stranding, and maybe even more. So do let us know in the chat if you are curious about Kojima and this new documentary on his experience, Connecting Worlds. And I'm sure we're going to hear more out of OD. I have heard that maybe Death Stranding 2 is in a weird spot now. I don't know if it's being delayed or what the situation is, but I think he was not happy with the reception last year. So who knows? Who knows what's coming next? All right, we're going to get into something that I am incredibly excited for, and maybe I alone. The indie game Vampire Survivors is set to release a new DLC titled Emergency Meeting on December 18th, 2023, featuring a crossover with the popular game Among Us, aka Among Us. Developed by Ponkel, the DLC brings together the monster-slaying gameplay of Vampire Survivors with elements from Among Us, offering a fresh and engaging experience for fans of both games. The collaboration was announced alongside a trailer that provides a glimpse into what players can expect from this unique crossover. If you haven't watched that trailer, you really got to. It is so good. The DLC will be available on PC and Xbox, with releases for Nintendo Switch and mobile platforms planned for a later date. This crossover is an exciting development in the indie gaming scene, showcasing a creative blend of two highly successful titles and adding new dimensions to the gameplay of Vampire Survivors. It is interesting I did not mention during the Game Awards announcements that Dredge is also partnering up with Dave the Diver. So we've got two heavyweight, hard-hitting indie games partnering up twice. That's pretty interesting. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm all here for it. I want more. Perry says, Vamoga Spire Survivor. I love it. I'm here for it. Dredge and Dave the Diver makes so much sense. It does make so much sense. And I don't know about Among Us and Vampire Survivors making sense, but I'm here for it. I'm down to try. I'm glad that it's more Vampire Survivors than Among Us. I do want more. I always want more Vampire Survivors. I love that game so much, and I'm always here for when they add new things. I haven't played the adventure mode yet, but that could also be what I get into on the Discord after this as well, because I love it so much. Any thoughts on this one, Trombone, before we move into everybody's favorite segment of the show?
Two big releases that were announced for crossover indie games, and if that's something that we'll see more in the future.
I hope so. I feel like the indie community is getting more and more tight knit, and people are starting to get to know each other and rub elbows, and I'm thrilled about it. I hope we see even more. All right, with that, we're going to get everybody's favorite segment of the show, Cryptic Critiques. It is Cryptic Critiques. I have found a arguably 5-star game, since Perry pointed it out last week. This may or may not be a 5-star game, but it is a game that has received a lot of 1-star reviews that I think are unwarranted, or at least harsh or funny or clues. However you want to see this, I found some critiques online, and the goal is to use these 1-star reviews to see if you can come up with what the game is. So I'm going to offer up 3 prompts to Trombone and also the chat here. Don't make any guesses until Trombone gets a chance to guess at the very end, but hold it in your head. You can even write it in the text box, but don't send the message until all 3 prompts are gone. But we're going to go through these 3 prompts, these 3 1-star prompts for a game that is arguably a 5-star. The first prompt, it is really what the title says. It's a game and you'll hear conversations. That's all. That's the first prompt for you. It is really what the title says. It's a game that you'll hear conversations. That's all. Prompt number 2. Calm fun that you can recommend to no one. I felt that this actually, I kind of want a shirt of just that, because I feel like that's the Nate game right there. That's the Nate experience. The Nerd Pastor Nate game is the one that's calm, fun, and you can just never recommend it to anybody out there, but I do anyway. That's my lived experience. My niche.
Where does Danganronpa fit in that?
Yeah, I don't know about calm, but it's definitely fun, and it's hard to recommend. I always have to be super careful about who I recommend it to, especially because of the weird like tropiness of Danganronpa, and I can get myself in so much trouble if I recommend it to the wrong person. That maybe I'm not going to call him a prude, but I mean there's some raunchy stuff in a lot of the games that I enjoy, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We push that to the side and we enjoy the myrtle and the mystery of it all. But yes, that's my niche. Okay, so first 2 prompts. Really what the title says, it's a game that you'll hear conversations, that's all. Prompt number 2, calm fun that you can recommend to no one. And then prompt number 3, I love this prompt so much. Prompt number 3, I think is going to give it away. I love the music and the art style. The characters are well developed and have unique designs. This is a bad review because I suck at the latte art. I think that's so good.
Okay, so I'm going to walk you through my thought process.
Okay, walk me through it.
So with the first one, I'm like, okay, it's something like with talk in the title. And I'm like, in the world. And then we get to the second one, and I'm like, that's harsh, but okay. And then we get to the third one, and as soon as I see latte art, I'm like, oh, duh, coffee talk.
It's coffee talk.
And then number 2 is just even harsher.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's a brutal review, but I do get where they're coming from, because it is a hard game to recommend to know exactly who you're talking to. Fortunately, we have a wonderful nerdy sermon out there that is exactly why you can recommend it, because it is the church experience. It is the community experience, and I think it captures that really well. People are really mean to this game. I had a tough time finding 1-star reviews that were not just mean. So I thought these were all at least relatively funny, if not maybe a bit cruel. But man, I
appreciate that the third one acknowledges.
Yes.
That, like, it's not the game, it's me.
Yes.
But I'm taking it out on the game. But I'm going to at least acknowledge it.
Exactly. Yes. And there were some people out there that were like, I don't like the music. And I was like, you're losing it. You have no sense of taste then. This is like one of the best soundtracks around.
But you can change the music.
Right.
You have multiple soundtracks.
Right. You can go through. And who doesn't love lo-fi? I don't know who doesn't love lo-fi, but I would have a hard time being with that person. So yeah, one of those situations. But we're going to get in away from Cryptic Critiques. Let us know in the chat if you did get that, if you figured it out before we got to that third prompt. When did you get it? When did you figure it out? I actually missed the pun on the first one, that coffee talk. It's literally what's in the game. It's the title that you'll hear conversations. I was like, oh, actually that's a pretty good clue. I didn't even realize how good it was until I saw it. So with that, we're going to get into our next segment of the show. To the Discord, this is news that has been submitted by the members of the Checkpoint Church community. If you would like to submit news to us, then go to bit.ly/DearTwig, DARTWIG, or go to our Discord at any point in time and go to our Ask Questions, Get Answers section of the Discord on Mondays. I normally ask for news there, and if you post those articles, I will try and pick out 3 of those that I find especially interesting or important, or maybe I just liked them and wanted to choose them. Regardless, we're going to get into our first To the Discord segment. Take it away, Trombone.
So this one was sent to us by Bree, has been officially discontinued by the Entertainment Software Association, ESA. The president and CEO, Stanley Pierre Lewis, stated that while E3 had been a central showcase for the US and global video game industry for over 2 decades, the decision to close it aligns with new opportunities to reach fans and partners. He acknowledged the industry's passion for E3, but emphasized the growing accessibility of companies to consumers and business relations through various means, including individual showcases. This year's E3, which was to be run by ReedPop, was canceled in March of 2023, and ReedPop and the ESA parted ways over E3 in September.
I don't think I knew that last part. I remember when ReedPop got brought into things, and I remember that they had been running it for the past little while, but I did not know that they'd parted ways. So that really was the death toll. If I had known that, that almost certainly would have been like, oh, yeah, like it's probably done. Definitely the end of an era, the end of a time that a lot of people really got to benefit from and experience as a means of getting in their gaming news, but I never got to go. I certainly wasn't in the industry and wasn't able to attend at any point in time. Didn't attend whenever the general populace was able to go. But it's a sad time. Sad to see it go, but I think that it's probably for the best, especially when we've got the Summer Games Fest, we've got the Game Awards, we've got all the Nintendo Directs in the world, we've got all these things that are going on. We've just moved into a digital age of announcement culture, and the con culture has taken over what E3 used to be. And there's no need to go to a gaming convention when you can just have games at your anime convention or at your any other convention that's already out there. So I think that's ultimately what killed it, is that the announcements moved online while the experience found better convention halls and more convention halls. And yeah, that's where we've gone from there. All right. Next up, this has been submitted twice, was submitted by both Sneaky Pigs and also Buish. So we're going to get into Fantastic. The development studio behind the game the day before has announced its closure just 4 days after the game's early access release on December 7th, 2023. The decision comes as a result of the game's financial failure. The team has stated that all income received is being used to pay off debts to their partners, marking a significant setback as this was their first major game project. The closure was announced through a statement on the studio's website and social media channels. Not my kind of game. I don't think it's yours either, Trombone. I can't imagine you playing a survival zombie shooter. It's not for me. I respect the hustle.
I can't even get through like watching Dead by Daylight half the time. The first time I tried to play it, I literally had an anxiety attack and was glad I had therapy after.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real mess. It's a real mess. It's a sad time. It's already been pulled from Steam, so unless you happen to already download it or can find something, it's being refunded and been pulled. I was very confused by this whole thing. I actually saw a TikTok like a week ago talking about how they were super excited for this game and they got early access and they really enjoyed their experience. And then a week later, I saw Donkey, Video Game Donkey on YouTube, tear this game to pieces. And I was so intrigued by the immediate like paradigm shift from hearing this exciting new game to, oh no, never mind, this game is real bad. And then all of a sudden it closes down. I typed in our Discord today, it reminds me of Gollum. This feels like exactly what happened to Gollum earlier this year. And it's not good. It's not good. An absolute train wreck. I have not been super invested or involved in the leadership and in the campaigning and in the maybe a Kickstarter. I'm not sure what the relationship was of the patrons for this game, but it's a real mess. It's a real mess, and I have a feeling that it is going to probably end up in a lawsuit that we'll probably not hear about, because as I understand it, it's going to be tough to get a lot of these monies back to the proper places. It's going to be tough to get the refunds back. It's going to be tough to get the debts paid, the things that they owe paid, and then undoubtedly some sort of Kickstarter or promise plan, patron plan that they're also going to have trouble with. So it's no good. It's no good. It's a bad mark on the gaming industry, and it's messy. Very messy. Makes me sad for them. With that, let's get into our last of our To the Discord segments. Take it away, Trombone.
So another lawsuit, actually. This was brought to us by Sneaky and Twilla. So Epic Games has won a significant antitrust lawsuit against Google concerning the Play App Store. This victory was decided by a 9-member jury, which unanimously agreed that Google had abused its market position. The trial, which began in 2020, resulted in a Californian district court finding that Google created a monopoly with its Google Play App Store. This decision is a major development in the ongoing conversation around digital marketplaces and their regulation. Not only is this a major development, it's something that needs to occur, because the more we get involved in digital marketplaces, which we're already involved in to begin with, the more we realize that there aren't laws that were created for this. And so it's not just loopholes that exist that companies are using, but it's just a gap of information. And this actually puts case law on the books to be referred back to later. And so I think this is really good that we're starting to have this coming through.
Yeah. Perry says hashtag preach. I agree. It's such a weird relationship that I have with Epic. I really don't like Epic, and then out of nowhere, they'll come out of the woodwork and they've got the money and they've got the backing to build this kind of case law, as you said, to build this kind of precedent and to set these things into the history books. And so it's such a headache for me to root for Epic because I never want to, because I think that they are just as guilty of eventually becoming a monopoly. I don't think that they're the good guy in this scenario, but they sure are helping shape a way forward for hopefully people to eventually end up dethroning them. They're kind of laying out the path for their inevitable own diversification in the future, I sure hope. Ironic that just a few minutes ago, I talked about how Epic and Fortnite just released 3 copycat games that are taking from other games that exist out there. Like, it's not good. It's not pretty. But yes, as Perry said, I don't like Epic at all, but that doesn't mean I have to like Google or Apple instead. It certainly does not. It's not a competition, and we can hold them all accountable. And that's definitely what we should be doing. As always, from our checkpoint angle, we want to talk about doing good and doing no harm. And conglomerates and the people that hold the power and the money are the ones that are the most likely to do harm and have the capacity to do the greatest amount of harm. And so the more that we can keep them in check and make sure that the least amount of harm is being done and the most amount of good is being done, that is what we will celebrate and be glad to see and hear more about as we continue to go forward with more news like this and things like this. And I have a feeling we'll continue to hear more about them. So yeah, it's tough stuff. I feel like we saw a very similar story happen with Apple and some very, very different results in that one, where we started the same way, but it wound up with just pulling everything. So it's a headache. It's a headache. It's a bizarre situation. The whole TikTok scenario that happened, was that earlier this year or last year they talked about if they could be pulled, and it's a lot. Phones and phone stores and internet-based stores, it's not an easy time. Not an easy time, and I think AI is only going to exacerbate that even more. Not to bring up something that I feel like we have to, you just won your bingo because we mentioned AI on TWIG this week. All these things are just stacking up and continually creating more and more headaches into the tech space. It makes me all the more glad that TWIG exists so that we can talk about this and maintain an ethical stance on what we can do about it, which isn't much, but we can still maintain.
We will not be investing in NFTs.
No. Take that right on back to 2020.
Veto that one.
That's it makes me tired. It makes me tired.
I'm glad that we're talking about these things.
Agreed.
Because if we don't talk about them, that's what allows them to fester and grow. But talking about them is what allows the public to have knowledge about it. So that way we as consumers can put pressure on when we realize things about this, because there are times when we as consumers can do that.
Yes. Absolutely agree. I think that ties a bow on it pretty nice. So, folks, if you'd ever like to submit news to us, bit.ly/DEARTWIG, Dear Twig, or go to our Discord, Discord at any point in the chat, go to the Ask Question, Get Answers section on Mondays and post your news articles there. But with that, we're going to get into my personal favorite segment of the show.
At this point in...
That's right. It is at this point in nerd history, everything that has been released on this exact day throughout time and space. Not too much today, but just a little bit of fun stuff to look through. So I'm going to start off with Trombone telling us what games were released on December 12th throughout time.
First off, I'm not okay with the fact that 2014 is considered history.
Yeah. Well, I looked through all the games.
I graduated high school.
Yep.
Like, anyway, so in 2014, Princess Remedy in a World of Hurt. In 2006, Far Cry Vengeance on the Wii. 2004, the PSP released. 1998, AU Pikachu. 1998, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening DX.
Yeah, some pretty cool ones in there. I loved Hey You Pikachu, even though it was a terrible game. It made me so happy. And then interesting to see the Far Cry Vengeance on the Wii was the real reason that I wanted to highlight that, because that might have been the last time that Far Cry was on a Nintendo system. I can't remember another time. Maybe it has been, and I just don't really know Far Cry games, but I thought that was pretty interesting to see. And then the PSP, neat to see always. And then, of course, Link's Awakening Director's Cut. Who doesn't love it? With that, we're going to get into some movies. There's only one movie released throughout time and space that I thought was worthy of pointing out today. Back in 1997, Scream 2. Scream 2 was released. And then some interesting random tidbits, one that is technology-based and one that's just neat history. In 1997, on December 12th, the U.S. Justice Department ordered Microsoft to sell its internet browser separately from its Windows operating system to prevent it from building a monopoly of web access programs. Hey, ain't that funny? 1997, and we're still talking about that good old monopoly on the internet here today and making votes in landmark cases going forward. So that's interesting. And then in 1800 was whenever Washington, D.C. was established as the capital of the United States on this day, December 12th. And also in 1993, my wife was born on this day. So happy birthday. Happy 30th birthday to Logan. Or will she be 29 forever? Is that the rule? I think the rule is once you turn 29, you're just that year for the rest of your life. So she's 29 years young forever, except this is the first year that's not supposed to be true. Regardless, happy birthday to Miss Logdub in the chat. If you haven't already, wish her happy birthday. And with that, that wraps up our segment of At This Point in Nerd History. Let us know if any of that history was interesting to you. And we're going to move into our penultimate segment of the show. That's right. It is time for upcoming releases. And once again, I'm going to let Trombone take the lead.
All right, so we're going to start off with movies. So, American Fiction, Jeffrey Wright racial equality film, equity film. The Family Plan on Apple TV, The Zone of Interest, A24, and Wonka. Coming up in comics, we have the Hellboy Winter Special, The Yule Cat, Life is Strange, Forget-Me-Not, Masterpiece, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin 2.
Very nice. Going into games now, coming out today, United 1944. Tomorrow, House Flipper 2, Pioneers of Pagonia is a new sim building game. Hearing good things about that. On the 14th, Bonds and Knights. If you played the game Faith or the Faith Trilogy, it looks kind of like those games. Cookie Cutter. It is not at all what you think it is. I thought a cool cooking game, a neat little cooking mama. Nope. It's a dark Metroidvania coming out. Custom Mech Wars, if you lived in the custom Robo days, looks like that kind of game. Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising. Neko Atsume Perfect, P-U-R-R. Paranoid, a new horror game. A new sandbox game called Return from Core. And then a game that we played on Mondays a couple months ago, Soul Slinger Envoy of Death. Pretty neat game. On the 15th, we have Astronomo, a new platform puzzler. And then Card Detective, not sure what Card Detective is going to be about necessarily, but I do like the idea of a card-based detective game. Legends of Hapax, and then the final game, Trinity Fusion. In the world of VR, we have two games coming out this week. Coming out on the 14th, a tennis game called Racket Club. And then on the 15th, finally, the Asgard's Wrath 2 is officially dropping onto VR. And then we have three pieces of DLC dropping in the next week, one of which dropped today, God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. I'm hearing very good things. Kung Fu Carl said somebody got Returnal in my God of War. And yeah, it's a roguelike element that's being brought into God of War Ragnarok, and I'm sure that people are super going to enjoy it. I'm sure they did a great job with it, and God of War Ragnarok was a landmark Hallmark game, so should be great. Tomorrow, the 13th, Warframe is getting a new DLC called Whispers in the Walls. And then on the 14th, I'm finally going to get to play Pokemon again because I wanted to wait until both parts came out. On the 14th, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, The Hidden Treasures of Area Zero Part 2, the Indigo Disc is officially releasing. So that is all the movies, comics, games, VR, DLC. Any of that sound interesting to you, Trombone? What highlights are there?
I was just very confused for a moment with the cookie one because I thought that it said Cookie Clicker. And I was trying to figure out how Cookie Clicker became a Metroidvania. Very confused on that. But again, I don't really play new games, so I don't really have much to say. Within that, I do know that one of my friends started the Ragnarok Valhalla and was absolutely loving it right before I popped over here.
Yeah, I think it's doing well. I'm sure it will. And it was such a surprise, and I think that people are thrilled with the little Christmas present that they got. So I think it's going to be all good. Should be super fun. And the ones that I want to draw out as highlights, I did not know anything about the American Fiction film, but I do love Jeffrey Wright. And I believe it is, I think it's a fiction. I don't think it's a true story, but it is essentially him combating basically black entertainment television, saying that it doesn't need to be specifically that, and arguing for equity instead of equality in filmmaking and in television production. And I found that super interesting. So I don't know if it's an anti-racist film necessarily that'll be coming out, but I'm intrigued and I love Jeffrey Wright. So that's a 2 thumbs up. Definitely want to know more about it. And then A24 getting a new film. The Zone of Interest is always fun. And then Chalamet in Wonka coming out on the 15th is exciting. We all know that I love Life is Strange, so I'm super excited for a new Life is Strange comic book. Pioneers of Pagonia, like I said, that one looks like it's doing well. Cookie Cutter looks like it's nothing like you think it's going to be. And Card Detective are probably my most interested ones. Of course, I'm going to be playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet again. I've actually thought about bringing them back to stream, so we'll find out. But that's going to be it for our upcoming releases for the week. Let me know if any of those got you excited, got you thinking about what you might want to play, or are you just gamed out for the year in the chat. With that, we're going to get into our final segment of the show. That's right. It is time for our meme of the week. And our meme of the week this week is one of my own. I was so honored to have received the most reacts this go around, but it is going to be a joke within a joke. So IGN shared about the Christopher Judge's comments during the Game Awards, in which he said that his speech was longer than the Call of Duty campaign. And then I added my own joke to it because the Call of Duty devs are apparently a little peeved about it. I said, I mean, to be fair, they would only get a joke if you told them the same one every year. Got him! Threw it right back at it. So I had to add my own little spin to the Call of Duty joke. I have no ill will towards my COD gamers, but it does irritate me that they're irritated about a joke. That irritates me more than anything, is the fact that they were like giving Christopher Judge a hard time for an obvious joke. Like it's not even that clever or deep or cutting. It's just a good little like gotcha. So, oh well, we'll see where that one continues to go. Hopefully that's the last we hear of COD being mad at Christopher Judge, because that is just the silliest thing I've ever seen. But with that, we're going to get into the end of the show. Before we wrap things up, Trombone, anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to tell us about? Are you going to keep playing Sea of Stars on stream? What's good in your life?
Yeah, I'm going to keep playing Sea of Stars on stream, basically. I'll be doing that again tomorrow. I don't know exactly when. It depends on how I'm feeling for how long it lasts. But at some point tomorrow on Trombone Dalek, right here on Twitch, you can find me there, and you may or may not find Minerva popping through as well, the cat, and we have a fun time over there. So we'd love for y'all to join us.
Yeah, you can actually just click T-Bone's name in the chat there if you're on Twitch with us right now, and you can follow right there. So if you aren't following already, you can do that. Thank you for the shout out there, Perry. So go watch some Sea of Stars. Excellent game, exceptional game that came out this year, and it'll be fun to walk through that ride with you. With that, we're going to close this one up. This has been TWIG, your weekly geekly family friendly news show, delivered live on twitch.tv/CheckpointChurch each week, keeping your family connected to the world of nerdy news. If you watched this far, then you likely enjoyed this one. So remember to give us a 5-star on your favorite podcast reviewing app. Click that like button and recommend the show to all of your favorite nerds out there. Is there going to be TWIG next week? Yes, there will be TWIG next week, so be sure to tune in again next Tuesday at 8 o'clock for that. With that, we're actually going to be ending this live and going over to Discord. So not only are we going to end the episode, we're also going to be ending stream. I recommend that you join us over in the Discord, !Discord in the chat to join that if you aren't already there. We're going to be meeting in room number 1, playing some games together if we have any games we want to play together. I'm thinking about Lego Fortnite because I think it looks interesting and I want to know more. But I'll play whatever everybody else is playing if we're playing a group game, and otherwise I'll probably end up hopping into Lego Fortnite. Anyway, with that, we are going to be ending this one as we always do with our 3 things that we believe to be true about you, every single one of you listening at any point in time, whether it be on Twitch Live right now, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on the podcast, wherever it may be. We're glad that you're here. Number 1, that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you. We want community with you. It's why we do things like this. Number 3, that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better place. Why? Because you are in it. Folks, with that, until the next time that I see ya, bye-bye.